To add a domain controller, click on Add Roles and Features from the Server Manager. On the displayed wizard, we will follow the steps we have seen in the previous video related to the Added Roles and Features process. So click on the Next button. Let the default selection role-based or feature-based installation and click Next. We will add the domain controller on the current server, so click Next. The role you need to add it in order to create a domain controller is called Active Directory Domain Services. When you select it, a pop-up window is displayed stating that Active Directory Domain Services can't be installed until certain roles and features are installed. So just click Added Features button. Click Next to continue. We don't need to add additional features, so just click Next. In the ADDS screen, there are some notes to consider. The first one encourages us to add additional domain controllers, at least 2, to ensure network availability in case one DC goes down. The second note states that the Active Directory Domain Services need a DNS server to be installed. And as we don't have a DNS server yet, we will be prompted to install one on the same machine. Usually, Active Directory Domain Services, DNS server, and DHCP server roles go hand by hand and are almost always installed on the same server. Click Next to continue. In the confirmation screen, the roles and features you have selected are listed so that you can confirm that. Once you are OK, go ahead and click the Install button and wait for the installation to finish. Once the installation completes, you can notice a yellow warning triangle under the flag. When you click on it, you get notified that you need to perform a post-deployment configuration. That consists on promoting this server to a domain controller. Click to perform the action. Next, you have to select your deployment operation. There are 3 choices. Add the domain controller to an existing domain. This suggests that you already have a domain and want to add an additional domain controller. Note that if you want to add the domain controller to an existing domain, the server must be a member of the domain before you promote it. The second choice is add a new domain to an existing forest. This can be selected when you want to add a child domain, for example. The third choice is add a new forest. This is what we need to select as we are creating our first domain. I will type the domain name I want to create, corp.zintech.com. Hit Enter or click Next button to go forward. Now you are asked to choose the forest and the domain functional level. This will determine the OS version that will run on domain controllers and also determines the forest or domain capabilities. You can choose from Windows 2008 to Windows 2016. Microsoft recommends setting the forest and domain functional level to the highest value that your environment can support. This way, you can use as many ADDS features as possible. So I will choose Windows 2016. You must also specify the domain controller's capabilities. This server will also run as a DNS server. This functionality is needed to run a domain controller, so keep it checked. The DC will also be a global catalog. This means it will contain an index of every object in the forest and this will help to search for objects, whether is it users, computers, printers, or so. You can notice that the checkbox is grayed out, and you can't change the default selection. This is because the first domain controller created in the forest must be a global catalog. The read-only domain controller is a domain controller that can't make changes to the Active Directory database. It's usually used in smaller or less secure branch offices. It allows local users to have a quick and easy access to read from and authenticate to the domain without running the risk of someone gaining a physical access and manipulating the entire domain in a bad way. The first domain controller can't be a read-only DC. This is why this checkbox is grayed out. Next, type the password for the Directory Service Restore mode, or DSRM. DSRM allows you to perform an authoritative restore of deleted objects from the Active Directory database. I will explain that briefly. Imagine the case where you have two domain controllers. On Monday, you delete a user account, and on Thursday, you want to restore it back from your backup. If you perform a normal restore, this user account will be deleted the next time the two DCs will synchronize with each other, because the Active Directory considers the restored item simply out of date and is overwritten during the synchronization. This is why you need to perform an authoritative restore. So type the password twice and click Next. In the next screen, we get a warning stating that a delegation for this DNS server cannot be created because the authoritative parent zone cannot be found. This message can be ignored because we don't want computers in other domains or on the internet to be able to resolve names within our domain. In the next step, you have to confirm your NetBIOS domain name. NetBIOS domain name is the subdomain of the DNS domain name. As we have named our domain corp.zintech.com, the NetBIOS domain name suggested is corp. You can change it by a more representative name of your domain. In our case, I will choose Zintech. This NetBIOS name will be used when opening a session on our domain. For example, if I want to open a session as an administrator on the corp.zintech.com domain, I will just type zintech /administrator. So for your NetBIOS domain name, choose one that reflects your domain name in a meaningful way. On the path screen, there is the default location of the folders required by ADDS. Keep the default paths and click Next. Here you can review all the options you have chosen so far. At this stage, you can still go back and make changes if necessary. You can also view the PowerShell script you can use to run the same steps in an automatic way. I would suggest you save this script. Click Next. Now we are brought to the prerequisites check window. The setup will check if all the prerequisites to promote the server to a domain controller are satisfied. This will take a moment before the task completes. Once the checks complete, you get the results here. All the prerequisites checks passed successfully. You can notice some warnings. None of this is critical and can be ignored. Now click the Install button to start the installation of the ADDS role, and wait till the installation completes and the server to reboot. Once on the logon screen, hit the Ctrl-Alt-Delete keys to open a session. What you can notice here is that the administrator username is preceded by the NetBIOS domain name, Zintec. This indicates that you are about to open a session on the domain. Type the administrator password and open your session. In the Server Manager, you can see the new server roles we have just added.